So welcome to the video lecture series on formal languages and automata theory. In today's video lecture, we'll be learning about conversion of a pushdown automata to a context-free grammar. So the question is given like this: suppose the PDA-P have Q0 and Q1 states, and we have two inputs 0 and 1, and we have stack symbols called as X, Y, Z. A transition function delta. We have an initial state called as Q0, and the topmost symbol of the stack during the initial stage, that is Z, and we have a final state called as Q1. Now, if this is the case and a set of transition functions has been given like this, so we have altogether 8 transition functions. So now construct, the question is construct a context-free grammar, which is VTPS generating a particular pushdown automata or grammar. Okay. Now, the first step is, first we have to construct the variables here. So what is the variables here? So variables we span from initial stage. Say for example, so first we will learn about variables. So how to construct a variables here. So V is called as variable. So now the starting symbol is actually a S here. Okay, the starting symbol is S. So yes, then we see, compare the number of states here. Q0 and Q1 are the states, and how many stack symbols are there? X, Y, and Z. Okay, so we have to make the combinations of all these states into the stack symbols. So first we will span from Q0. We will write for Q0 X and Q0. There's always a stack symbol should come in the middle. X, Y, Z should come in the middle, and state should come from Q0 to Q0, then Q0 to Q1, then Q1 to Q0, then Q1 to Q1, so on and so forth. We have to do like this. So first we will take the states here. So first we will have Q0. So initially we will have Q0. The stack symbol is X here. Then we go for the state called as Q0. The second is, we will go for Q0, Q0, then X, then now you go for the state called as Q1. So we have to start from Q0, then go to Q0, then start from Q0, go to Q1 for the stack symbol called as X, for the stack symbol X here. Okay. Now we have to do the same thing for Y also, from starting from Q0. Okay. So now we will go for Q0, Y, Q0, then Q0, Y, Q1. So we have done for two symbols now. Still one more symbol is there, that is called as Z. That is only for Q0 we have done. Okay. Now we'll go for Q0, Z, go to Q0, then Q0, Z, then go to Q1. Now only we have done it for Q0 state here. Okay. Now we have to go for Q1. So Q1, start from Q1 now. So repeat the same thing for Q1. So Q1, go for X, then go to Q0. Then Q1, X, then go for Q1. Now we have done for Q1, starting from Q for X here. Now we'll go for Y. So Q1, Y, go for Q0, then Q1, Y, go for Q1 itself. The third one, now we have used the Y here, now we go for Z. So Q1, Z, go to Q0, then Q1, Z, Q1 itself. So this is called as the set of variables for the given pushdown automata. Now we will do one thing. Now we will write First we have written V here. Now we have to write what is T. Okay. So T, we can write here, T is actually number of terminals here. So what are the T here? So T we have 0 and 1. So we have only two terminals, input symbols called as 0 and 1. So we will write here 0 and 1. Okay. Now we have to go for starting symbol now. Okay. So starting symbol and when you go for starting symbol, we have to see, now we have to write S here. When you go for starting symbol, you see what are the states. Initial state is Q0, then we have topmost symbol of the stack is Z, that should be on the middle, and we have to take these two states into consideration, that is Q0 and Q1. Okay, so always start from Q0, use Z as a symbol, then go for Q0, then start from Q0, use Z as a symbol, then go for Q1. So we will write the starting symbol here. So S is equal to, so we will write Q0, we have Z, and then go to Q0. Then Q0 is the initial state, Z, and then one more state is there, the state is called as Q1. Okay, that's about the starting symbol here, about the starting symbol. So we have run V, T, P, and S. The most important thing is how to write the production. So the productions is the major form here. Now when we write the productions, you just take the first transition. What is the first transition? The first transition is spanning from Q0 to 0, then Z. Okay. Now let us take the first transition into account. So what is the transition? So delta of Q0, 0 Z, and it goes to Q1 Z. Okay. Now we will write the productions for this. So delta of Q0, 0 Z is equal to Q1 Z. Now the first concept here is, you see number of the symbols in the stack after the transition. The number of symbols in the stack is actually 1. Okay, so we will write 2 to the power of 1. Okay, symbols is actually 1. We'll write 2 to the power of 1 here. When you write 2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 1 is equal to 2. Now that means we can have only two productions for this particular transition. Okay, so what are the two productions? So how to write it? So you see always the stack symbols here. Stack symbols is actually Z. After the transition, only one function is there. So if one symbol is there, then write 2 to the power of 1 is equal to 2. That means you can write two productions for this. Now how to write the production? So first we'll write the productions for this. It gives, and we'll write another production here. Okay, now how to write this? Now, what is the initial state? Initial state is actually the transition is actually Q0. So this column should be filled with Q0. Now which thing you have to bring in the middle? You see the stack symbol during the input. During the input, the stack symbol is Z. Okay, that should be in the middle. So bring this Z here in the middle. So Z. Now go on the right side. Okay, so what will be the third input? The third input is actually, how many inputs, how many states are here? The states are actually Q0. Okay, the states are actually here Q0 and Q1. Two states are there in this Pushdown automata. So we'll write two states here. The two states are Q0 and Q1. Okay. Now you go to the transition here, output is having Q1 and here we should have Q1. Okay. Now what about this? So this 0 is called as an input. You bring this 0 here. So this 0 should be brought at here. Okay. This 0 is the input, should be brought here. So we will write 0 and we will write 0 here. Okay. And bring this Z here. Z is the topmost symbol of the stack after the transition. So Z. Now, what about the third symbol here? The third symbol should be, you have to exactly replicate this. So Q0 and Q1 is in the input. So you have to exactly replicate this here. So I will write here as Q0 and Q1. So this is the production for the transition function called as Q0, 0 Z is equal to Q1 Z. Now I will go for the next transition. So what is the next transition? The next transition is Q0 1 Z is equal to Q0 X Z. So we will write here delta of Q0 1 Z is equal to Q0 X Z. Now here see the number of stack symbols here. Number of stack symbols is 2. Okay, so we have to write 2 squared is equal to 4. So stack symbols is 2. So 2 to the power of 2 is equal to 4. That means you have to write 4 productions for this. Okay, so how to write the 4 productions? We will write one by one. So the first production tends to, and since we have 2 symbols on the stack, okay, so we have to put one more thing. Okay, and similarly we have to write 4 productions like this. And finally write now how to fill this. So when you take up the input first column, what is the first column? It is Q0. Okay, so you write Q0 in all the productions. Okay, now you see what is the input here. In the input actually the stack symbol is Z, so that should be the second parameter. And how to fill this? So since we have 2 inputs Q0 and Q1, so you first write Q0, then Q1. Okay, now you bring this Q0 now. So what is the output here? The output is actually going to Q0. So we'll write Q0, Q0, Q0 and Q0 for the outputs. Now, what is the input symbol here? So first we have to write X here. X is for this one and Z is for this one. So write X in the middle, X in the middle, X in the middle and X in the middle. Okay, and here you have to write Z in the middle. So Z in the middle, Z in the middle, Z in the middle. Because we have 2 symbols on the stack. Okay, one is for X and another is for Z. Now, how to fill this? The third column. The third column, here you have written Q0, Q1, Q1, Q1. Okay, so since 2 states are there, you directly write it as Q0, Q1, again Q0 and Q1. How to write in this order. Okay, now you see what is the first column here, how to fill the first column. Okay, when you fill the how to fill the first column you can fill like this, just exactly replicate this third column as a first column. That means Q0, this Q0 should go here as Q0, then this Q1 should go here as Q1, then this Q0 should go here as Q0 and this Q1 should go as Q1. Okay, now how to fill the third column, the second parameter here. So this column has to be filled. So what you have to do is exactly replicate this. So take this Q0, write it here, then take this Q0, write it here, then take this Q1, write it here, and take this Q1, write it here. Now this is the production rule. for the second transition function. Now we'll go and write the third transition function. So how to write the third transition function? So you see, what is the third transition function? So the third transition function is delta of q0 1 is equal to q0 epsilon. So this is very crucial function. So since you are having epsilon, okay, so epsilon is actually length of the string is actually 0. Length of the string is actually 0. So 2 to the power of 0 is equal to 1. That means you should have only one production. So what is the one production? So write it here. The first production, one production, only one production should be there. Now how to fill this? So what is the state here? Q0. Okay. And what is the topmost symbol of the stack? Z. Okay. Now, and what is the output state? Output state, since this is epsilon, generates epsilon, bring this q0 here. Okay, bring this q0 here, and since it's epsilon, just transpose this 1 here. Okay, transpose this 1 here. So no need to fill the remaining column. For epsilon, when epsilon transition is there, production can be rewritten like this. So you can write the production, rewrite the production as q0 z q0, which produces 1. So this is the production. Now you will go and write the fourth production. So production 4 is delta of q0 0 x is equal to q0 x and x. So since there are two symbols in the stack, okay, 2 to the power of 2, actually 4 productions we have to write here. So what is the 4 productions? And we will write the 4 productions here. Write all the 4 productions. Now see here, what is the symbol here? So initial state, we are applying Q0, state is actually Q0. So write Q0 in all the 4 productions. Okay. Now see, what is the topmost symbol of the stack in the input? It is X. So write X in the middle. X in the middle. Okay. Now see, what is output here? So, okay, the third symbol. So since we have 2 states, so we will write Q0, Q0, Q1 and Q1. We have 2 states called as Q0, Q0, so we will write as it is. Now since we have 2 inputs here, so we have to have one more symbol like this. One more production. One is for the first X and another is for the second X. Now how to bring this? Now see, what is the output here? It is Q0, 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 Q0. Now see, what is the input here? The input is first X. You put first X in the middle. So X, 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 and write the second X. Take this second X and put it in the middle of this X, 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 and X. Okay. Now what we have to do here is, you see, what is the input here? Q0. Okay. So we have 2 states here, Q0 and Q1. So simply write Q0, Q1, Q0, Q1. Okay, we have written it. Now how will you fill this? For the second column, you have to just transpose this value. So Q0, you directly write it as Q0, Q1, take this Q1 and write it here, Q0 again write it here, and Q1 write it here. Now what you have to do for the third column of the second one? Okay, this column has to be filled. So simply transpose this. So Q0, directly write it as Q0 here. Then Q0 again, you write it here. And write this, take this Q1, write it here, Q1, and then take this Q1, write it here. Now see what is the middle symbol. Middle symbol is 0. So just take the 0 and put it here. Just transpose this. So 0, 0, 0 and 0. So we have to do here also. For example, I will show you. I have missed that. Now in this case also we have to take this 1 and write it here. Okay, I will write it here. 1, 1, 1 and 1. In all these cases we have to write it. Okay. Now this is about the fourth transition function. We will write the fifth transition function. So what is the fifth transition function? Fifth transition function is delta of q1 0 z is equal to q1 y and z. Same concept. So since we have two symbols, 2 to the power of 2 is actually 4 productions we have to write. So first production, write like this. Since we have two symbols on the stack, we put two parts here. This one, again 2 parts, and this one, you have to write 4 productions, okay? And fourth one. Now take down the symbol here, okay? So what is the input state? Input state is q1, so write q1, 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 q1. Now what is a stack symbol? During the initial stage, it is z, so write z, 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 z. Now what are the states here? The states are actually q0 and q1, so write q0 and q1. We have two states, so again q0, sorry, it's q0, q0. Here you have to write q1, q1. Only for input you have to write in the order q0, q0, then q1, q1. Now see what is the output state. Output state is q1, so write q1, q1, q1 and q1. Now we have two symbols on the stack. One is y, write y in the middle of the first part, y, 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 and z in the middle of the second part. Okay. Now what do you do for the first column for the third part? The third part is actually, you have two states, isn't it? q0 and q1. So we will write q0, q1, then q0, again q1. Okay. Now what you have to do for the second part here? Second part you have to fill the first column, isn't it? Okay. So transpose this value. So q0 to this place, then q1 to this place, then q0 to this place, and then q1 to this place. Okay. Now what you have to do for the third part? Third part you have to just take from the input. Okay, the third column, third part. Okay, so transpose this q0 here, so q0 again here, this q1 here, then this q1 here. Now what you have to do for the first one, this column. Okay, now see what is the input. The input is 0, so just take this 0 and write it here. So 0, 0, 0 and 0. So this is the way of writing the transition function for this. Now we'll go for the fourth part. Okay, we'll go for the next column, next transition. The next transition is delta of q1 1 is equal to q0 is it. Now see here how many symbols are there. There is only one symbol. So 2 to the power of 1 is actually 2. Only 2 productions is needed for this. So what are the 2 productions? So tends to first production, and this one is to first production, second production. Now see what is the input. Input is q1. So we will write q1 on q1. Then what is the topmost symbol of the stack? It's z. So write z and z. Now See what is the states here. There are two states, isn't it? Q0 and Q1 only. There are two states in the pushdown automata. So write Q0 and Q1. Okay. Now what is the output here? The output is actually Q0 state. So fill Q0, Q0. Now what is the second input? That is it. Okay. Now here you have to just transpose this. Okay. So what is the input here? So you have to write it as Q0. Directly transpose this Q0 here. So Q0 and Q1 as it is. Okay. And now we have to bring this input here. So what is the input here? Input is 1. So just transfer this one input 1 here. So now we will discuss about another transactions. So we'll learn about other transactions here. Let us take a transaction called as, the next transaction is delta of Q1 0 y is equal to Q1 yy. Now we have two symbols in the stack. Okay, two symbols in the stack. That means 2 to the power of 2. That is 4 productions we have to write here. So what are the 4 productions? We'll write 4 productions here. Production number 1. Now we have two symbols in the stack, so one more part is required. One and the last one. Now see what is the input state. The input state is Q1. So write Q1 in all the productions as a first parameter. Now what is the stack symbol? Stack symbol is capital Y. Okay, so that should be in the middle of the, that should be the second parameter, the input. Now we have two states, that is Q0 and Q1. So we will write Q0, Q0 as the first one, then Q1 and Q1 as the second one. Okay. Now see here, what is the input state? Input state is Q1. So write Q1, Q1, Q1 and Q1. Now see, we have two input symbols in the two symbols in the stack. The first Y. So take the first Y, write in the first Y in the middle of the first parameter, and write the second Y in the middle of the second one. Okay. Now see here, what is the input state? What are the states here? The states are Q0 and Q1. So we'll write Q0, Q1, Q0 and Q1. Okay. Now we will just transfer this Q0, Q1. Just transpose this Q0 to Q0 and Q1 to Q1, Q0 to Q0 and Q1 to Q1. So we'll write this. Now we have to see what is the last parameter here. The last parameter has just transposed the input here. What is the transpose in the input? Input, the third parameter in the input is Q0. So take this Q0, write it here. Then take this Q0 again, write it here. Take this Q1 here and take this Q1 here. Now see what is the input. The input symbol is 0. So transfer the 0 here. So 0, 0, 0 and 0. So this is a production which is related to Q10Y and Q1YY. Now we'll go and write the last production. What is the last production? Here the last production is delta of Q1 1 Y is equal to Q1 epsilon. So since this is an epsilon, epsilon does not hold any values. Okay. So length of the symbol is 0. So 2 to the power of 0 is 1. So only one production is required to write it. So we'll write one production tends to. Now see here, what is the input symbol? Input state. Input state is Q1. We'll write as it is. Okay. Now what is the topmost symbol of the stack? It is Y. We'll write Y as it is. Now what will be the third parameter? Third parameter, since this is epsilon, take this Q1 and write it here. So third parameter you have to write it here. Okay. Now since epsilon is the input, so nothing is required on the right side. So directly transfer this 1 over here. So 1. That's it. Okay. So for epsilon alone, we have to do like this. So thanks for watching the video. Have a good day.